Sony, and I don't think this is necessarily a secret, but this is not something definitely people did not a lot of people know about. I certainly didn't. Sony was basically prototyping a gaming system of sorts, a TV game system of sorts, as early as the early 1970s. And I gotta tell you, it's a looker. I mean, the thing's very kind of attractive in that 1970s way. It's
analog, baby.
Yeah, it's got a dial on the side, a big, fun, chunky dial that looks like it would be a lot of fun to turn. Some buttons on the front, and games would be on cards. To me, as far as I can tell, this looks like it would have been a sort of a trivia game machine. There are buttons underneath. There are 3 buttons underneath a red placard that are answer, and then a blue button that you press for proceed. So I'm assuming that this would be used for trivia, or you could probably do simple. You might be able to do simple other types of games with that sort of. Setup, and it's theorized that the scroll wheel would have been used to scroll through text or whatever's on screen. I don't know that this would necessarily be a huge game changer, but if it had taken off and become popular, could it have shaken up later things? Now, I find it hard to think that if this was really a trivia machine, it could have shaken things up too much. Sony is a bigger company than some of the other companies that were putting stuff out at the time, but I don't know that it would have shaken anything up for, say, Nintendo in the future when you're looking at just completely different sort of stuff. I mean, we're talking about, like, bar games versus Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, is this technically like a video game system? Like, how technical do you want to get about it? Okay. It's not like you go from a trivia game to all of a sudden Donkey Kong.
Right.
The next year. There was the Omni Entertainment System in the 70s. It was 8 tracks.
Mm-hmm.
It was a board game, though, but you use 8 tracks and you had buttons to answer, so it's not too far off from something like this, except you're not using a TV screen. So, it's very interesting. It's funny because it's funny that they try to contact Sony about this. They don't know anything about it. Like, well, we have no idea.
And to me, that's the more interesting part. You know, why do we not know anything about this? Well, because video games weren't taken fucking seriously. I mean, you know, we're in an era where nailing down a precise release date for Super Mario Brothers is kind of agreed upon at this point, but it took years and years and years of research to do it. No one kept track of this stuff back then. This was not considered important. So people who worked on this are long gone. I mean, did they even make documents of who worked on this? Who prototyped it? Who came up with the idea? How far along was it? Are these people alive? This was the early 70s. I mean, what were the age of the people who were working on it? So this is why video game preservation currently is so important, is so that we have answers to these questions 50 years from now, when someone stumbles upon something that didn't receive a whole lot of press back in the day.
Sure. So this came from an article that featured pictures from the 2002 to 2005 Dream and Creativity exhibition. I guess that was in Japan. And I guess the founders of Honda and Sony were involved with this somehow, or
I believe they put on the show.
They put it on? Okay. So it sounds like they probably had it laying around. Oh, let's put out some of our stuff.
Right.
That's been laying around for 30 years. We don't know anything about it.
This looks cool, and it's in nice shape, so we're going to put it out.
Right.
But unfortunately, we can't tell you a goddamn thing about it.
Like,
It looks nice on a shelf.
There's a little placard that says, thankfully in English also, a prototype TV game machine. Then there's 3 sentences in Japanese that I don't know translate what it mean, but it's probably like, yeah, this is what we had, it would have trivia on cards, and that's it. But it probably doesn't function. They probably don't have any cards for it anymore.
No.
They probably threw this together and said, oh, this could be a cool thing in the future. But that's as far as it got, unless you find the engineers that put it together, already 40 years ago. Well, it's an interesting piece of almost gaming history, I guess you could say. It's not quite gaming history.